Thank you, Michael. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. And wow, what a subject to be diving into, especially today. And what you're going to hear from me comes from, as I stand in front of you today, represents 80 plus years of experience in this arena they call transgenderism. Because I started this journey of cross-dressing in 1944. And I cross-dressed until I was 50 years old. So for 46 years, I was identifying as a female in my early teens as Crystal West. I was identifying as a female in my late teens as Nicole. I got married, had 2 children. I struggled with this whole ideology myself for 46 years. And then underwent the reassignment surgery. They call it reassignment. It doesn't reassign anything. It mutilates you. And it was by Dr. Stanley Biber. And Biber in Trinidad, Colorado, when he did my surgery, had already performed some 3,000 surgeries. And by the time he retired, he'd done 5,000. So that was in 1983. So I've been redeemed and restored through the power and grace of Jesus Christ since 1990 and been serving the Lord, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But today, there's so much to talk about. This whole idea about transgenderism has just kind of gone off the rails. I mean, to be truthful, there's no such thing as a transgender person. No one in all of world history has ever changed their gender. You can have hormones and surgery and change your appearance. You can change your persona. You can change what you look like. You cannot biologically change your gender. And I challenged my therapist at the time. His name was Dr. Paul Walker, who approved me for the surgery, actually was the author of the WPATH Standards of Care. He was the world-renowned therapist for gender dysphoria. At the time wasn't called gender dysphoria, it was gender identity disorder. And so I challenged him and the surgeon who did the surgery to prove in court, because I was then trying to restore my birth record back to Walt Higher Male. Can you testify in court that hormones and surgery actually changes somebody's gender? And in July of 1990, they testified in a document to court that hormones and surgery does not change your gender. They use the word intermorphology, which is, technical term for it doesn't change who you are. So you can change your appearance, and you can change your, what you look like, your name, and all that other stuff. Biologically, it's still a male. So there's no such thing as a transgender person. There is such thing as a person who identifies as a transgender, but you can't become one. And so no one has ever transitioned. They love these words because all of these words are there to convince you that something happens. This is the biggest medical fraud that I can attest to because I lived it. Your gender doesn't change no matter what you do. And what I've found in working with probably 4,000 people or so, when I sit down with them and actually explore what caused them to not like who they are, we actually find out that the issue that caused them to not like who they are had nothing to do with gender. It was something else. So in 2013, when they came up with the term gender dysphoria, they admitted that the only reason they came up with gender dysphoria is because they didn't want people to feel bad about having a disorder. Because prior to that, it was called gender identity disorder. And they thought that was really hurting people's feelings. So they took away disorder. The problem is they have a disorder. It's just not identified yet. And so this frustrated me to no end. And I'm not a therapist. I'm not a doctor. I've learned everything that I've learned from working directly with thousands of people whom I've never, ever charged. I don't ask them to buy a book. I just want to listen to them. I want to hear their story. Everybody has a story, and people are hurting like I was. And when I find out what caused them to not like who they are, everything changes. Because they themselves then realize, oh, I'm not transgender. I don't have gender dysphoria. I just needed to work on this over here. And the stories are just amazing. One of the most recent ones, and I'll just give you 2 or 3 to give you an example of why I think this is so insane. A guy wrote me an email, and I was watching television in my office, which is a reclining chair and a computer. And I got this email, and he says, I'm working with a gender therapist, and I'm transgender, and I transitioned, and I have gender dysphoria, and I was looking at your website, and I just want to know what you thought about what I was going through. And there's a clue. My website is sexchangeregret.com. Right? So I feel like I got a little wedge going on here, right? Because something going on. So I'm really a very polite, lovable little fuzzball. So when I wrote him back, I said, well, your therapist is a quack. You're not a transgender. You've never transitioned, and you don't have gender dysphoria. If you want to work with me, we're going to spend some time and find out what the real issue is. And I turned to my wife and I said, well, I hope he writes back, but he probably won't. So he wrote back and he said, that's very curious. What do you want to know? I said, I just want to know one thing. Tell me, at the moment you went into this, you said was at 13 years old, what was going on in your life at 13? I don't care about anything else. Just tell me what was going on at that moment at 13. He wrote back. My mother was a raging alcoholic. She would get a butcher knife about 3 times a week and chase my dad around the house trying to murder him. That's a 13-year-old witnessing this. So I wrote him back and I said, well, I'm not a therapist, not a doctor, but I think you suffered trauma. So when you go back to your gender therapist, don't dress up in your little red pumps. Just go in as a guy. And tell your therapist you talked to Walt Heyer, and Walt Heyer says, I don't need a gender therapist, I need a trauma therapist, and see what she says. So a few days pass, and I get a note back, and he says, this is life, real life is just unbelievable, right? And he writes back and says, well, I went in and I told my therapist that Walt Heyer said, I need a trauma therapist. Well, his gender therapist said, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'm also a trauma therapist. And what I'll do is I will test you on the trauma scale and see where you register. And he was on the ACEs scale, he was 7 out of 10. So she said, instead of, and this is my words, instead of ripping you off for $225 a week like I've been doing, we're going to do a 2-hour session and we're going to do EMDR therapy. Now, I'm not advocating EMDR therapy. Some people say it's good, some don't. I've never had it, so I'm not advocating for it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, do something else. So anyway, she did EMDR therapy, and he's writing saying this was absolutely the most painful session he's ever had in his life. It was horrible. Prior to that, he said he loved his sessions with his therapist because she was never challenging him. She was just taking a check and putting it in the envelope and going home. So he said, but Walt, this is his words in his email. Walt, 1 session, 2 hours, I'm free. I wrote him a week later because I said, I'm a little skeptical. And so I did that for 4 weeks in a row, and he said he was free. It was done. But see, what I have found out is when I don't affirm them, when I challenge them and I ask them to look over here and look at something else, it changes their thinking. And keep in mind, the people contacting me are contacting a site that says sex change regrets. So they have something going on already. So it's not like I'm just plucking somebody out. They've already got something that's triggering something in them, which gives me the opportunity to pressure them about looking somewhere else, because obviously what has happened was the hormones and surgery did not work. And how did I learn that? When I was 2 or 3 years old, my mother would pick me up by one arm and hit me with a frying pan as part of her disciplinary action. And my mom, for whatever reason, never told me that she loved me. I don't know that she did or didn't, but she just never said it. And the beating, she actually told a pastor's wife friend of mine about doing that. She was not ashamed of it. I'm not saying she was proud of it, but it was just a matter of fact, yeah, that's what I used to do. Because he was a rotten little kid, I guess. I don't know. And so, as a result of that, my grandmother would be babysitting me when I was about 4 years old. And she was a seamstress making dresses, so I watched her making dresses. I got curious about dresses. My grandma made me a purple dress when I was 4 and put me in it and started dressing me. And that was our little secret. And that went on for 2.5 years until I decided to take the purple dress home, put the dress on so I could feel the affirmation that I was getting from Grandma about how cute I was. You know, who doesn't like to be affirmed, right? And so when my dad found out that his mother-in-law was making a purple dress and putting his boy in it, he was a little upset. He was extremely upset. And so he decided that he was going to form me into a man, a real man with a hardwood floor plank. That was his way of doing it. So now I'd been hit with a frying pan, cross-dressed by Grandma, and now Dad's hit me with a hardwood floor plank. Now, his adopted brother, Uncle Fred, in his teens, because I'd been wearing a purple dress, he felt, Uncle Fred, that I was fair game to be sexually molested. So he started sexually molesting me. So we've got the pan being hit as a kid, cross-dressed, hardwood floor plank, and sexual molestation before I'm 10. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this is not the best way to start life. It's going to give you a little difficulty. And in the 1940s, I didn't know how to handle it. And so I started identifying in my teens. I started cross-dressing. I was secretly cross-dressing for really the rest of my life up until I was 50 years old. And I got married. I never had any homosexual tendencies. That was just, I had a broken identity. So I got married. I had 2 children. I was associate design engineer on the Apollo space missions, Apollo 1. I was a part of American Honda Motor Company and helped develop the Acura division. I was a high-flying executive making a lot of money at 2 parking places. Life was great, except I had been hit with a pan. I had been cross-dressed. I had been sexually abused as a child and never dealt with the issues. And they all started coming up. So I started using alcohol. I started using drugs. I was married. I had everything. I was in the 1% group, income-wise. But I wasn't dealing with the past. And the past was now haunting me. And so I went to Dr. Paul Walker, the most renowned expert on gender issues in the country. He's in San Francisco. I went in there, and I went in for one session. I told him about my childhood, just like I did today. I explained to him all this stuff. He said, well, I've seen you in the Roadrunner bar in San Francisco. I know you're all this stuff. And he said, one session. He says, come back next week. I'll have a letter of approval for your surgical procedure with Dr. Biber in Colorado. He diagnosed me that quick. Now, that's what they do today. That hasn't changed since 1981. That was in 1981. They still do the same thing today. It's the biggest phony baloney thing I've ever seen. The pharmaceutical business is a $4.4 billion business. And it's hurting people. So, what are the consequences? I went through this. I lived a life. I lost my wife, my children. My daughter didn't speak to me for 8 years. I lost my income. I was homeless in a pile of vomit in a park in Long Beach, California. And I was wearing a rabbit fur coat. I borrowed a dime from somebody. Actually, phones were a dime back then. And I went into a restaurant and called somebody and said, I need help. I need recovery. And I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I went to my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I smelled so bad. I looked so bad. No one would come near me except who became my sponsor, Ben and Michael. Another guy, Michael. Yeah. And so they took me in, and I was so bad. They were a gay couple, and they took me in, and they put me in the garage because they didn't want me in the house. And they set the garage up, and I actually lived in the garage for some time, but they took me to AA meetings. And Ben and Michael helped me with my recovery process. And they found me to be quite interesting because I was identifying as Laura Jensen by this time, right? So here we are. Full circle. 1981, all this time. And what are the facts? What have we learned? Seems like nothing. There's no such thing as a transgender, except they're calling everybody transgenders. They're cutting off body parts on girls, boys, filling them full of hormones. They're committing suicide. They're engaged in all kinds of crazy activity, and we see too many things in the news that are either directly or indirectly involved in this. Why? Hormones. Anabolic steroids. The hormones are anabolic steroids. They're powerful. They're dangerous. And there is absolutely no regulation on how many hormones you can get. If you are a person saying you want to get male hormones, you can get them. You can get all the male hormones you want. You can get them from Canada, Mexico, or Planned Parenthood or somewhere else, and you can overdose on them and become a complete idiot in a short period of time. I've had people, young girls I've worked with, almost die within just a few months of taking these hormones because nobody's regulating the quantity, the use. Nobody's monitoring this stuff. This is the Wild West. Same way with men. We would be better off, in my opinion, if no one who, for the purpose of changing their gender, could have access to hormones and surgery, period. If it were up to me, it wouldn't happen. They can go to Canada, they can go where they want, but don't come here because it's too destructive. It's too easy. They're handing them out like candy. And so today, the fact of the matter is, I want to talk more about the consequences. What are the consequences? The consequences devalue, dehumanize, and destroy God's design of who you are and how you're to function. That's all it does. Doesn't change your gender. It destroys your ability to function as the person God designed you to be. Anybody who engages in taking hormones and having surgery is attempting or trying to erase who they are in an attempt to become someone who they can never be. That on its face is insane. Anybody who engages in this, we need to sit down with them, sit across from them, and ask them, what caused you to not like who you are? Talk to me. I'm not going to give you hormones. I'm not going to let you have surgery. We're going to talk until we find out what caused you to have this discord about your identity. And the people that I do that with welcome me with open arms. They want to hear this. You'd be surprised how many people don't want to identify as a transgender. They really want to be who they are, but we need to help them find how to get there. And if we can identify that it's PTSD or bipolar 1 disorders or dissociative disorder, or whatever it is, and it may just be a horrible experience that they've had in their life. And maybe they don't even want to talk about it. A lot of times these events that people have that cause them to not like who they are so traumatizing and so horrible that they struggle to talk about it. Some of the things that happened to me, it took me many years to talk about. And when I talked about it, my brother refused to talk to me anymore because I sort of talked about what happened in the family. And I wasn't supposed to do that. I was trying to save my life. I was trying to heal. So the consequences are we devalue, dehumanize, and destroy who we are and how we're to function. Does that sound to you like a good purpose for hormones and surgery? Does it sound like using the word transgenderism is something that we should be doing and showing it? No. Devalue, dehumanize, and destroy. But it goes further than that, because now we see in the news the evidence how it destroys families, how it destroys individuals, I've seen so many where it destroyed marriage. Did mine, 15 years. I walked out on my kids and my wife. Destroys families. Everything it does, it destroys. And then when they're suffering and they're in deep despair, they destroy other things and other people. We need to learn how to talk in a way. I know, my words may sound offensive, but they're factual. They're truthful. I'm not anti-transgender. I'm just anti-living in fantasy. This is and I've told my wife this. I said, I get so frustrated privately. Why are we acting like 5-year-old children dreaming about becoming something that you can't do? You can't do it. Why don't we tell people, no, you can't change your gender. It's not possible. What are we afraid of? We're going to hurt their feelings? Is that what it is? Is it just that it's not popular? When I approach people and talk to them about it, as I've said before, they're actually relieved. They thank me. Does this make sense? Hormones radically alter the way we think, feel, and behave. They're a drug. They were not intended for this purpose. None of this stuff was intended. It's not gender-affirming care because it's not about gender. And by the way, the gender clinics never ask anything about history. Never. I had 2 cases recently that were just so alarming to me that I need to share them with you. A wife contacted me about her husband, said he's going to have surgery, and she's afraid, Donald Trump's going to shut all the gender clinics down, and so he's going to rush in and have the surgery. And I said, well, tell me what caused him to not like who he is. And she said, well, I don't know. And I said, what do you mean you don't know? I said, well, give me his number. Let me talk to him. Will he talk to me? She said, yeah, I think so. So we started exchanging emails, and I said, tell me if you had anything going on in your life that was either traumatizing or you felt was a big loss, something that made you depressed. And I'm asking him in an email, and he writes, no, my life has been fine. It's been good. I just need surgery. I'm going to Tennessee to get surgery, and it's all good. And I said, okay. I said, do you mind if I talk to your wife again? And he said, no. So I wrote back, and so I keep asking questions. Something had to happen, because you don't do this and have this much anxiety about quickly getting the surgery unless something happened. I found out what he said was he had a perfect life and nothing ever happened. His mother, when he was in his teens, committed suicide by burning the house down she lived in his bedroom. I asked him about this, and he said, no, that was not traumatizing. And his wife explained how it was traumatizing, but we deny the trauma. It's not that the trauma didn't happen. We stay in denial so that we're so convinced that surgery is going to fix this horrible event that happened, because nobody is digging in. And I only had one day before he had surgery to work with him. So I'm doing this stuff on the fly. Well, it started Friday and he had surgery on Monday. So I didn't have the opportunity. He went and had the surgery. And so why do I say this? Because it's so important for us to know that they are hurting. And why do we want to hurt them more by dehumanizing, and destroying their ability to function? I can't get that through my head. Why that's okay with anybody. Devalue, dehumanize, and destroy. And it devalues, dehumanizes, and destroys the value that Jesus Christ has in us and our ability. What we're supposed to come together as men and women. Cut off body parts, you can't do that. Many of the people wanted to have children, they can't, because of what happened. All I'm saying here is, what's wrong with the truth? Why has the truth become so offensive? I don't know. But we got to get back to it so that people aren't being shot. The truth has got to be okay. And yeah, it might hurt to hear the truth, and it might even be offensive. But it doesn't bear up taking someone's life over. You probably don't realize that literally thousands and thousands of people have gone through these procedures and don't do it anymore. And my wife and I, she's my wonderful wife there, 28 years. Yeah. I affectionately call her my smoking hot trophy wife. So, here's the thing. I guess what I'm crying out for is for people to start telling the truth. We can do so much better if we sit down and listen and ask what happened that caused you to not like who you are. I've sat across from people. I've talked to people on the phone that were getting ready to go to the gender clinic the night before just the night before, and I told this one guy who was in Chicago, he was working on his break, and I'm talking to him on the phone. I said, man, I wished I was in Chicago so I could sit down and have a cup of coffee with you and hug you. Because I said, you don't need this. There's nothing wrong with you the way you are. And he says, yeah, but, it looks really great. And it's a lot of glitter out there, and I'm bisexual. I said, it doesn't matter. You're fine just the way you are. You don't need hormones. You don't need surgery. I want to come and hug you. I want to spend time with you. And so I said, but I can't. I'm traveling. And so I get a note from him the next day, and he says, I went to the gender clinic. Can we talk tonight? And I said, sure. So I was back in the hotel room, and I'm talking to him on the phone. He said, I went into the gender clinic, and he said, well, they said everything that you told me they were going to say. And he said, when I looked at the guy and I realized he was repeating back what you said, I realized it was a lie. And I realized I am fine the way I am. And he says, you probably saved a life today. And so, but it's not, it brings me almost to tears. It's not that tough. If we got the guts to just listen to people. I tell pastors all the time, if they have somebody struggling, sit down and talk to them. We don't talk to anybody. See, that's what used to happen to me. Everybody talked about me. Nobody would talk to me. I want to talk to people. I want to find out what's going on. And my wife knows every time we have that opportunity, we change a life. When we don't have the opportunity, we can't intervene. And I've worked with every denomination there is, Muslims, Jews, Iraq. We've reached 160 countries around the world. Our ministry has reached over 200 million people. And we've been doing it for 20 years. I'm just a little old man. I'll be 85 next month. I've been through cancer, 7 years of cancer. Blood clots. They cut body parts off of me. Right? I'm still here. They can't get rid of me. And I'm going to be here until he takes me home. And I'm going to keep telling the truth. And I want you all to do that. We can do better. We can do a lot better. There are no transgenders. Nobody's ever transitioned. It's not about gender dysphoria. Our gender was not assigned at birth. Sorry. It was innate and fixed in the womb. Don't mess with it. Pretty simple. When you boil it all down, it's really simple. We got to pull up our boots, get some guts, and tell the truth. And if everybody did that, we'd make a big difference. I'd just make a little difference. It's time to make a big difference. Because too many people are hurting, and too many people are using the wrong language. I refuse. When somebody gets me on the show and they say, we have Walt Heyer detransitioning. Hold it. Stop. I'm not a detransitioner. I never transition. You can't transition people. It doesn't happen. Stop using language that doesn't work. I'm a man who they cut body parts off of who looked like a woman. Take these people out of the sports. They're men. Secretly, I wish some of the women would take the guys and give them a little help there, It drives me crazy that they allow men in women's sports. Dang, that ain't right. A man, think about this. According to them, a woman is only a man who's taken hormones and had surgery. That's all a woman is. That's their view. That's insane. A woman is the most precious thing there is. They have a function that no man can do. They have a heart that no man has. They have capabilities that men don't have. Let's not mix them up. Okay? So, just remember, using the wrong words and suggesting that people can change genders, giving people hormones and surgery, results in serious consequences and sometimes deadly. We can do better. We can do a lot better at telling the truth. I'll say it again. There are no transgenders, only people who identify as transgender. Nobody's ever transitioned. And if we spend enough time working with the person, I refuse to tell them they have gender dysphoria because I always find something else. They have dysphoria. Amen for dysphoria. It just doesn't happen to be about gender. Come on. I need all of you. We all need Jesus. And thank you for this time.